Today, on episode 52 of Rail Talk, we welcome Ray Paulick to talk about the Game of Silk situation, MyRacehorse, Del Mar, HISA, all the issues of today. And Jon asked me about the first week at Saratoga. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And Jon, we had fun while you were gone, but the old ball and chain is back. How was your vacation, buddy?
It was beautiful, Joe. Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. You can see I have less gray hair now, Joe, just from walking out in the sunshine of beautiful Western Canada. Yes, that's the way they say it out there. I was out in Banff and really enjoyed myself. Missed you guys. Missed being on the show. I watched the show. I thought it was very good. I was excited to see that you had good chemistry with other people other than me because I worry about you, buddy. But I am so stoked to be back.
Of opening week at Saratoga, I was lucky enough to be up there all week, headed up on Wednesday. Fiance came up for a couple of days, so we had some fun as well on Monday and Tuesday and just got back home. There's a lot to take away from the racing side and from just the atmosphere and the vibe. We did this once before when I was at the Belmont. Jon, what would you like to know?
Joe, greater minds than mine would like to know from a man on the street. What was the vibe at Saratoga? What was the overall feeling about the races that were being carted? And also, you got to walk me through this whole cashless, vendor situation, because I don't know from that.
Yeah, oh man. So first of all, one thing I definitely noticed, it was very, very empty comparatively to an opening week at Saratoga. Even especially Sunday. Sunday was like a ghost town. And I love that because I'm spiritually a very old man and I do not like crowds. Mm-hmm. And it was uncomfortably crowded, as I mentioned, at the Belmont. But I think that had something to do with it. I think the fact that the Belmont was run in June so close to the start of the Saratoga meet that a lot of people came up for the Belmont and then were like, I don't need to go back to Saratoga quite so soon. So I think that affected the crowds that we had on opening week, but it was perfect for me. And that's what the audience wants to know about. How did it affect Joe Bianca? Yes, exactly. But it didn't seem to affect Handle. Handle was pretty strong opening week. We lost the first day of turf races, but then we were able to be on the turf the rest of the week. It was hot. It was a little bit uncomfortable, and thankfully it's cooled off a little as soon as I left town. It cools off. We also saw that there were some major storms on the backstretch, so hope everybody is safe and sound. Hope all the horses are okay, and then we can move forward for the rest of the meet. The cashless thing, it really is the way of the world now. If I get that people are like, racetrack is one of the only places left where cash is king. It's just not that way. Go to any sporting event. It's all debit cards or Apple Pay or whatever. And it's just faster. It's just faster to get the lines moving quicker. One tap, move to the side. Here's your food. Here's your program, whatever it is. It's necessary for the future. You can still bet with cash, of course. That currency is always accepted at the windows. But yeah, I didn't think it was a big deal or a big sticking point, and people will get used to it. But Jon, I want to ask you about the racing opening week at Saratoga. I have my feelings and what stood out to me. But just watching it from afar, what was your takeaway from opening week?
Well, again, Joe, I think like anything else, there's going to be smaller fields everywhere. And that's just part and parcel of racing here on the East Coast, especially, or on the coast, I guess I should say, especially. California's a different story because they just don't have as many, as large of a horse population. But here there are so many options, especially in the spring and summertime, that, if you don't like a race that's, potentially carded or in the condition book at Saratoga, you have 6 other racetracks within a 200-mile radius that you can run in. So they are going to get thinned out. And now purses and other racetracks are starting to increase to the point where, Saratoga is still really good, but for maybe a little bit less money, you have a better chance to win at one of the other racetracks. Joe, the thing that's been driving me nuts, and you and I talk about this off air a lot, is the stakes schedule. With these major racetracks, whether it's Saratoga or Monmouth or Delaware, they're just not coordinating. And a perfect example is there was a 3-year-old colt and gelding stake race going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. One of them was the quick call at Saratoga that had 7 horses carded in it. And one on the same day, one of them was the My Frenchman also going 5.5 furlongs on the turf, that had 5 horses. The thing that really surprised me was there was only one horse that was cross-entered. And interestingly enough, that's the horse that won one of the stake races. So the tip of the cap to the racing manager at Christophe Clement's barn for recognizing those 2 races were the same place or the same day. I mean, they're 2 different places. But Apollo 10 in this case ran in an easier division of which was the My Frenchman, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. And the same thing's coming up again with a bigger race, and that's the Haskell versus Jim Dandy being 7 days apart, and just watering down again the fields of both of those racetracks. So nothing new, but you would like to think that the bigger the race is, graded stake races, grade 3, grade 2, grade 1 in this case with the Haskell, that they'd be able to figure it out on the calendar where it would be more interesting. And Joe, this is from a guy who ran in a 4-horse field Dwyer that was just
Right.
the week earlier, which was a grade 3 for $200,000 in New York. So it's crazy that we have all of these, especially 3-year-old races that are just stacked one on top of the other when the population of the horses per year, per crop is reducing. We haven't been able to reduce these stake races. And I understand why, because the breeders really want to have black type in the family. And not a lot of people check to see if a horse finished 3rd in a stake, was it 3rd or was it next to last? And I still got black type. People aren't necessarily looking at that part. But there's going to be a point in time, Joe, where some of these ambulances are going to get black type because there just aren't enough horses in the races.
And they motor too. I don't know, like this,
they always make laugh though. It's got to be bad jockeying.
But this always happens to me at Aqueduct. They scare the shit out of me. I'm like, I watch the race down at the rail, and then the ambulance always drives past them. Like, oh shit, I forgot. I'm supposed to be following the horses. Like that's how fast they drive.
Yeah.
Like a freaking getaway car in a bank robbery. Like I don't know what that's about. But no, that's a good line. And yeah, I honestly am looking forward to the Graded Stakes Committee's rulings next year, because we talked about it a lot, about how a lot of the New York races were downgraded and none were in Kentucky. You
love that stat. You love that stat.
Really sticks in my craw. But that was so I hope that got enough attention.
Right.
They'll start to downgrade some Kentucky races as well. But they're really there are just so many races that don't need to be races, or at least don't need to be grade 1, grade 2s. And look no further than this weekend's Coaching Club American Oaks. I get it. This is an historic race. It's an important race in terms of, horses that have gone on to be in the Hall of Fame, gone on to be champions. It's had some great winners. Even recently, Monomoy Girl, Songbird come to mind. But look at the field size. We've got 5 horses in this Saturday's renewal. Torpedo Iona obviously is the leader in the division, so it does have some star power. 2023, 5 horses. 2022, 5 horses. 2021, 4 horses. 2020, 5 horses. 2019, 5 horses. 2018, 5 horses. 2017, 7 horses. So you had to go all the way back 7 years to find a Coaching Club American Oaks that had more than 5 horses in it. And eventually, this is going to come to a head, and people are going to stop betting these cards the way that they normally do, and it's going to affect the industry. It hasn't happened yet, but I do think we're going to reach an inflection point, because I have zero interest in betting that race. Just like I had no interest in betting the Kelso on Saturday. And we were in the race with Northern Invader. It was 4 horses. It was just an unbettable field. And there's just, like you say, there's so much overlap. And it really is the selfishness of the breeders. I think the only reason that nothing more drastic has been done to reduce the graded stakes and the stakes calendar, because like you say, there's no context on the pedigree page. If you have black type, and very few people are going to dig and see that you were 3rd in a 4-horse field. Basically, by default, you got graded stakes or stakes black type, and it needs to be devalued because of the short fields and because of the abysmally, lack of betting interest that we have in these races. I will bang on this drum every single week with you, John, if that's what it takes. And I encourage other industry participants who aren't breeders to do the same thing, because how could you possibly put a field? And it was the same thing like Stars and Stripes Day at Aqueduct right before Saratoga. And I like that card. I like the advent of the Belmont Derby and the Belmont Oaks, but it was just 1, 4, and 5 horse field after another. can we please get together and either get rid of some of these races or shuffle them around differently on the calendar? Because God knows there are too many options for trainers who don't want to run their horses often enough. It just is, it's a depressing thing. And I don't want to go too negative, because was a lot of great racing at Saratoga this past week and this coming weekend. But John, like, it's just, it really is like, it's a major downer from a betting standpoint, and even from a fan standpoint, that, oh God, I can't wait to see Torpedo Anna at 2-5 against 4 tomato cans in this Coaching Club American Oaks. Why do we need that race?
And Joe, I think what's going to happen, what I'm hoping is going to happen, is that with the installation of these all-weather racetracks at the various, that are, whether it's Belmont or Gulfstream that was just implemented, et cetera, then I'm hoping that they will adopt some of these stake races and put them onto the Tapeta, because right now that is an area that is underserved. There are not very many stake races on the Tapeta outside of the year-round Tapeta racing, like or the full-time Tapeta racing, like at Turfway or at Presque Isle, or of course at Woodbine. But otherwise, you look at Gulfstream's stakes calendar, and I don't think there is a stake race on the Tapeta, at least after the championship meet. There might not even be one for I don't know if there was, I don't remember if there's one for the championship meet or not, but I know after the championship meet, if there's one, I might be exaggerating. So maybe you take some of these stake races, not the Coaching Club, obviously, but you take some of these other stake races that don't have quite the vast history, but are in the same division, and you transfer the name over to the new surface, because then at least you're giving horses that need to run on that or excel on that surface an opportunity to continue to earn black type. And then it's valuable, because then you're getting 7, 8, 9 horses in those races. And it's not like de facto black type, because like I said, you ran third in a 4-horse field.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that solves a problem that a lot of people have with synthetic racing, is that especially at Gulfstream, it's a lot of cheap horses. And it's just, they do have bigger fields, but it's a lot of cheap horses beating each other, taking turns beating each other over and over again. So if you do beef up the synthetic stakes calendar, I do think you get better horses, you get fuller fields, you have a more interesting betting product. And that's what drives the game, people. That's what drives the game. Bettors and owners are what drives the game. And to act like, that's not important, and we can just keep, stamping black type on these horses in these 4 and 5 horse fields and just do that forever, I think is a little short-sighted. One race that did have a full field that I noticed over the weekend was a Diana. That was a really nice race. 10 horses, only 5 Chads. Chad only had 50% of the field this time, so we're making progress, and somebody else challenging him in that division. I don't think that division is stellar. I think that's another one where they're kind of taking turns beating each other. But White Beam goes wire to wire. It was good to see MyRacehorse come back and run a big race. She had come on last year and ran great in the Breeders' Cup, and she ran against the grain of the race in the Diana too, right? Because that was a race that was pretty much a merry-go-round. She was the only one who made up any ground. And then the other thing I wanted to mention from opening week is the 2-year-old racing. It's obviously so exciting to have the babies come out at Saratoga and Del Mar. West Point had a really, really nice first-time starter, Moment's Notice, who ran 3rd on Saturday. That was great to see. Son of More Than Ready. Somehow he was 16-1, even with the West Point money. So that probably won't happen next time out. But the winner of that race, I want to talk about Tough Catch, who went wire to wire, and he was one of 2 big winners for complexity on the day, because Moplex also won the Sanford in a blowout performance after Rapoli had to scratch Menti. And John, Complexity has been the standout stallion, the first crop stallion so far this year. Vacoma's had a bunch of winners too, but Complexity. And I think I always thought he was going to be a nice stallion, because he had that like 7 furlong mile type speed. I think those produce a lot of really nice horses. John, have you seen anything from the Complexities that stands out or that makes you like more interested to potentially buy one?
Well, when you talk about first-year stallions, I take it a little bit with a grain of salt, Joe, because doing something early on doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a prolific stallion. That being said, I agree with your point about Complexity and having the quote unquote good resume of distance. It used to be where 7/8, 8 furlong miler type horses were, usually the standard bearer when it came to stallions. And in this case, with Complexity, you can say the same thing. We had Mensa early on, who I think was Complexity's first winner, actually at the time, and then we sold him on the Fasig digital sale. And he is going to run. There was a card that got canceled at Woodbine due to heat. And they're bringing that race back I believe, for this weekend. So Mensa will be running for Resolute Racing with Mark Casse, continue to train. So we had a Complexity. He was obviously very precocious, and we really liked him. And he won first time out. But yeah, the babies are what you come to see at in these non-stake races, at least at Saratoga, because they're the hope, they're the future. Joe, you touched upon White Beam winning the Diana, the homebred of Juddmonte's, winning the grade 1. When I was away, I was thinking about the fact that, again, breeders, sometimes we as breeders, I'll include myself in there, get overjoyed about certain stallions in the early beginning, whether it's Vekoma and Complexity this year, or Omaha Beach, in previous years, where you get super excited about stuff, and then you have to really wait and see how the progeny continue to run. How about a horse like Caravaggio, where, we bought a few Caravaggios and they didn't turn out very well at all. The horse stood originally in Europe, son of Scat Daddy. Coolmore brought him over here. And then had a couple of okay crops, nothing really big, and then they subsequently sold him. But now, within a week, he had White Beam, who won the Grade 1 Diana, and Porter Fortuna, who won the Group 1 Falmouth over in Europe, with Donica O'Brien as trainer and Medallion Racing as the primary owner of that horse. So now he's got not one, he being Caravaggio, has got not one but two Grade 1, Group 1 horses that are raising his awareness to the rest of the industry. And you wonder, you say, in hindsight, should the farms have a little bit more patience, especially with the son of Scat Daddy, who is the sire of sires now. He produced No Nay Never and Justify and Mendelssohn and Sioux Nation and Flame Away. I mean, there's, again, in hindsight, you look back and say, maybe I should have given him more time. But the Caravaggios didn't. I mean, they look like him. He's not a very big horse, and here in the States, people don't like that on the commercial side. They want a big 16+ handed horse. They don't want a 15-3 like Papa was.
Yeah, no, he was gorgeous,
gorgeous, and a stellar racehorse.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised to see another son of Scat Daddy kind of really finding his own and finding his stride with his, was it, third or fourth crop now.
Right.
So yeah, that was good to see. The other thing I wanted to mention, last thing for me, was about Saratoga. And this is just if you weren't paying attention for whatever reason for opening week, maybe you were away. The speed is king on a dirt court, on a dirt track, and this was the case at the Belmont. Speed was just, it was money. And I think that's one of the things that kind of carried Dornoch to the win in the Travers. Not that he didn't run a good race, but it just is so hard to close on that dirt track. And I hope that changes throughout the meet, because I've always thought of Saratoga as a very fair surface. Obviously, there are certain days where certain paths or certain styles work best, but I've always thought of Saratoga as very, very fair, not like Monmouth, not like the old Keeneland highways. This was a place where it really was an even level playing field and proving grounds for some of the best horses. So I hope that changes. We'll see. We're recording this Wednesday, early afternoon, so they're going to kick off the second week in just a little bit. But that's definitely something to look for if you're starting to bet, if you're like warming to the task, as they say, starting to bet Saratoga this meet. And also something to look for if you do find horses who maybe, closed a little bit and ran third or fourth, maybe put a star around them or a circle around them and look for them later in the meet if the track does shift to become more fair. Because right now, it's every race is 1, 2, 3 around the track pretty much. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade Farm. Our old homie Kitty Petruniak at the TDN had a great story recently about how TaylorMade got Informed Patriot from running in the Indiana Derby on Saturday night at Horseshoe Indianapolis to the Fasig-Tipton selected horses of racing age sale on that following Monday, where he sold for $1.55 million. We talked a little bit about this last week on the show, like what a great price that was for the seller and for the consignor, for TaylorMade, and just for the industry to have that kind of horse of racing age sell for that much. It really sets a new bar and a new standard for the industry. But yeah, you should go check out Katie's story it's mainly about Hunter Houlihan, but also about the whole program at TaylorMade that is able to turn around these horses quickly and get them to a sale and just get them there, in looking great in one piece and able to show their absolute best for the buyers. And obviously it worked with that price tag selling for over $1.5 million. So they say at TaylorMade that, when you're with them, your family. I know Jon can attest to that along the way, all the horses that they've helped him get through the ring safe and sound and realize their best return. And it's true, no matter whether it's a horse of racing age, whether it's a yearling, a weanling, a broodmare, they do it all. They obviously specialize in yearling sales, and they have a huge consignment coming up at the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale. So we're looking forward to that. Expect it to be very successful. But no matter what kind of horse, no matter what level of client, they'll treat you like your family. And they've just proven to be able to do it for decades. And this is just the latest example, getting Informed Patriot from Horseshoe Indianapolis and racing to the horses of racing age sale in under 48 hours and getting that huge return. Shout out to everybody at TaylorMade who was a part of that. We're so excited and so stoked. I have to say the catchphrase. So stoked to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. He is the founder and the publisher of the Paulick Report, Ray Paulick. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We're so stoked to have you. For real stoked. And I'm excited to talk to you because my days at the TDN, I wasn't allowed to acknowledge that you existed, Ray. Like being a competitor, you guys obviously do a great job, but it's good to be able to tell you that face to face. Where are you now? You're out in California, right?
Yeah, we kind of split our time between Lexington, Kentucky, and Del Mar, and so I'm in Del Mar awaiting the opening of the summer meet on Saturday.
Yeah, man, there are worse places to be than Southern California in July.
Yeah, it's a little cooler here than it is in Kentucky
and in New York.
Yeah, so far we haven't had any lightning strikes or trees, knocked down from wind. I saw what happened at Saratoga. That's kind of scary.
You're living right. So let's start with this. You've been reporting a little bit on this. We talked about it last week on the show when Jon was off gallivanting in Western Canada. The Game of Silks potential meltdown. For anybody who hasn't tuned in, Game of Silks was basically like a fantasy / crypto investment horse racing game, and they're freezing operations temporarily. Doesn't usually seem like those things come back into being in the crypto world after they freeze operations. You haven't done full reporting on it, but people have reached out to you, I'm sure, with their stories. What have you learned so far about the status of Game of Silks?
Well, first of all, I'm not a gamer, so I haven't been involved with it at all. When NFTs first, sort of became part of our vocabulary, or the non-fungible tokens, I tried to understand what the hell they were. And somehow someone took a game of horse ownership, but not real horse ownership, and paired it with NFTs. So we have two things I don't understand that were thrown together with cryptocurrency, a third thing. And it's just, to me, the NFT craze seems to have died down quite a bit. I guess after the Donald Trump superhero NFTs sold out, it's been all downhill since then. So I don't really, they had investment from the Jockey Club, from NYRA. I believe TaylorMade Stallions or TaylorMade Farm was involved in it too. And I guess there's nothing wrong with trying to promote something that will expand the game, expand knowledge of it, ownership. But you have to be, you have to discriminate a little bit. Like every idea, you don't have to go for every idea. And this seems like an idea that maybe wasn't quite ready for being going into effect. It just, I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are angry about it. They said they're pausing it for 30 days. I'm not sure that they can come back from a pause.
Yeah. And I can tell you, Ray and Joe, that as a horse owner, I invested. I bought 3 of these horses, digital horses, for lack of a better term, through Game of Silks. And I can tell you that it was the best $3,000 I ever lost in the business, because I don't have to pay for the feed. I don't have to worry about donating the horse because he's not functional anymore. I mean, it was a good lesson in how to be in the horse business. Albeit there were a lot of people that, invested either more heavily or a higher percentage of their net worth, and actually look like that they're going to get the rug pulled out from them. But I think as a concept, though, guys, don't you feel like that to introduce people and get a new audience, that it made sense at a certain level? Now, whether or not people were going to make money on it is kind of a different story. But I'm going to transition that same thought process into our other favorite investment / fan club, which is MyRacehorse. And I know, Ray, you have some ideas on MyRacehorse, and you actually, before the show started, were talking to us a little bit about the fact that MyRacehorse, actually made some sense in certain sectors of the industry. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, on the gaming thing, I remember in Japan, I learned there's a I forgot what it was called, Derby Gaming or something like that. They actually had games similar to that, but you didn't have to make an investment. You just had to play the game. And I don't know, the whole Game of Silks thing, I don't get. MyRacehorse is it has to be called an investment because of all the hoops they had to jump through to get SEC approval. But anybody that gets involved in horse racing should know that it's not an investment where you have a better than average chance of making money, because the economics aren't there. It's been that way for a long time, that purse money is about a third of the actual costs of having horses and the purchase price of horses. So you don't get into it to make money. You get into it to have fun. If you're really, really good at it, if you get involved in the breeding end of it, you can make money. But people that invest in MyRacehorse, I hope they didn't do it to make money, because all but a few of them will be disappointed. But I talked to an old friend who I worked with at the Thoroughbred Times years ago, and he bought into three MyRacehorse partnerships, or bought 3 shares, and he said he's had a blast with it. He said it was better than losing $300,000 on a couple of yearlings, and he said I get the same experience for the most part. So I
don't know if you get the same experience. I would pause on that one. And I don't think that you necessarily get the same experience as being able to do even intangible things like pick your silks out, or name your horse, or pick the trainer, or where they're going to. I mean, there's a lot of benefits, I think, in owning that micro shares don't lend themselves to.
Yeah, and I guess comparing the micro shares to a traditional partnership, I go back to Dogwood when Cott Campbell started it. I think he had larger partnerships of up to 40 people. Then he cut it way back to 5, because he didn't want to deal with that many people. Imagine Cott trying to deal with microshare.
Oh my God. It's like us trying to figure out Game of Silks. It's just, just above the pay grade. I get it.
But I think that MyRacehorse does provide kind of a service to get novices involved. They're making money. Michael Barons is making money on it. It's because it's the way it's structured. And as long as they can keep coming up with a good horse now and then, I think the experience will continue.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, and I thought it was interesting that when they sold the breeding rights to Seize the Gray, that it was interesting because it dictated basically where they were going to run the horse next. In the schedule, it talks about how they get, I think it's a $3 million bonus if they win the Jim Dandy, and it was a lot less if they won any other Grade 1, i.e. the Haskell. Mm-hmm. So it pretty much showed me, again, I'm a Jersey guy, I'm a Haskell guy, but it showed me what the bigger scope of the breeding industry thinks of the Haskell versus the Jim Dandy. Is there a difference in your mind, Ray, between the two, or is it just that's just what the breeders like?
The Haskell has been a popular race for breeders for a long time, I think. It's I think it's more of I think it's an easier, maybe an easier race to win in some ways because it's speed favoring. I mean, the fact that Bob Baffert doesn't have a horse in this year's Haskell is amazing to me. As much as he focuses on that race once the Triple Crown is over, it'd be an interesting question among breeders. What are the 3-year-old rank the 3-year-old races in importance in terms of the races you would want to win for a stallion that's coming to your farm? And obviously the Derby is number one, but I'm not really sure where you go from there. Travers probably.
Yeah. Travers. Yeah, I think Travers, and then probably Belmont. And then it's a shuffle, and then for what you want to win the most. Going back to the MyRacehorse thing, I agree that I think in general, like anything that introduces people to the game and lowers the barrier to entry is a good thing, because we cannot be turning away any kind of opportunity to bring new fans and new investors into the game, no matter at what level. So you can get into the economics of it and get down into the weeds of, well, is this really an investment? Is this a scam? Is it somewhere in the middle? I think, as long as the people that are participating are getting something out of it and we're bringing new eyes and new wallets into the sport, that's something that we need to always be behind. But just another thing that I think is going to help with the fan base and with the public perception of racing is decreasing breakdowns and making the horses more safe. Ray, you've been in this game for a long time. HISA's come around and I think has done a lot of good things in terms of uniformity of drug policy and surface safety. Obviously the horsemen's groups are kind of doing everything they can to throw a stick into the spokes of HISA at every chance they get. Where do you think we're at? Like, do you think we're at a place where we can turn the corner and really move forward with this thing, or do you think we're in danger of going back to where we were before?
Well, it all depends on the courts, I think, at this stage. The one court of appeal has said it's constitutional. The other court of appeal, the one in New Orleans, said enforcement, the rules are constitutional. Enforcement of the rules is unconstitutional. So it's likely going to end up at the Supreme Court. And you mentioned horsemen's groups. It's one horsemen's group. It's the National HBPA. And their affiliates, and they've been used as a vessel by anti-government, anti-federal government groups that are basically paying for all of the legal fees, so they can take down another federal agency. And I'm not really sure where we're going to go with HISA, with the EPA, or with OSHA, or a lot of federal programs. After this recent Supreme Court ruling where they overturned a decades-old case involving Chevron. And it's kind of a scary thing, because we could go back to having basically no federal oversight of a lot of things. And HISA would be one of them. They've made great progress. There's been a lot of missteps. There's a learning curve. But when you think about, are we better off now, as things are moving forward, lowered fatalities, we've I think made the sport a lot more acceptable to the outside world. And can you imagine going back to a state by state system that we had before, where guys like Jorge Navarro and Jason Service were just making a mockery of the game, and there was no accountability for fatalities with racetracks or horse people. So it's not a good thing if we have to go back to that.
Anytime anybody says Supreme Court now, I get like a chill down my spine. Just anything that comes out of the Supreme Court these days is something, in my mind, that makes America worse off. And if this goes up to the Supreme Court, I don't have great faith that they're going to do the right thing. Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, with regard to safety, and now a lot of the racetracks are actually installing a third surface, an all-weather surface. It used to be where people would say anecdotally it's safer on the all-weather, but I think now they have actually some science behind it, and major racetracks, Gulfstream and Belmont are implementing this additional surface. Do you think that's going to be a positive thing in the long run for the industry as well?
I think the synthetics are especially good as I think it was the people from McKinsey who pointed out that they're especially good in circuits that race during the wintertime when you've got all kinds of weather. Turfway Park is a good example. Track that used to lose days at a time from freezing, then thawing, then freezing, and creating a really unsafe surface, and they just couldn't do anything with it. So I think synthetics are especially good for winter tracks. Places like that race year round.
Right.
Charlestown, Penn National, the Belmont. I think the Belmont solution is good, running on synthetics in the wintertime. The other thing that's happening that's really positive is that they're making dirt surfaces more safe. There's been a lot of advancements in making the dirt tracks better, and if they can do that, then that's great.
Yeah, no, totally. And I wanted to get both of your takes on this because I saw a story of Kevin Attard, who is one of the top trainers in Woodbine in Canada, talk about potentially sending horses down to Belmont once Belmont is full-time synthetic in the winter. Because there's a lot of horsemen in New York that are really not happy about this move. And I get it. Like if you have a bunch of dirt horses and you've been supporting the product at Aqueduct in the winter for a long time, you kind of feel like you're being uprooted forcefully. The flip side of that is nobody likes the Aqueduct winter program.
Right.
Like from a betting standpoint, it's unbettable. And I just think that something needs to be done to shake up that environment. And if it gets more turf horses from Woodbine who don't want to go all the way down to Gulfstream, I think that's kind of the way to go. John, actually, I kind of want to start with you on this. Like you race a lot of horses at Woodbine. What have you found over the years in terms of how the horses have performed, how they've held up, and your thoughts on the Belmont move? Would you send horses now down to New York in the winter potentially?
Well, Joe, I can tell you just, again, anecdotally, just with my own experience, what we've seen when we've sent horses to Woodbine, younger horses, it's helped as far as, forming their bone. It's not as much stress on their ligaments. And we don't have as many issues, stifle issues, especially, that we do when we're training horses year round on the dirt. That's number one. The older horses, listen, I'm 55, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm popping Advil before I go play pickleball or go for a walk with the dog, because it's wear and tear. And Ray, you're only a little bit older than I am, but I'm sure you'll agree that it's when you get older, it's a little tougher. So if you're given a softer surface or a little bit surface a little bit easier on your legs and on your body, you're going to perform better and you're going to perform longer. And Joe, I think in this day and age where we don't have as many horses being born every year, to elongate their careers is a good thing. And also to give an additional surface to these horses that maybe they're not good on the turf for whatever reason. And maybe the dirt's too deep for them. They can't handle it. So to give them another avenue to basically, give them another surface where they can succeed and elongate their racing career in a safer way, I think that's a win-win-win. Does it suck for the guys who are used to training on the inner dirt, the old inner dirt at Aqueduct? Yeah, it stinks for them. But like everything else, this industry is moving forward, and you have to abide by what the powers that be are making as the law of the land. You can't sit there and say, wow, I can't. Why can't it be the same anymore? There's a lot of other racetracks if you want to go to, and I know you're uprooting your family and you have to get new help and all those things, and that sucks. But in the grand scheme of things, if it's going to be better for racing and it's going to keep the industry going longer, and you've saddled yourself, no pun intended, to this industry to make a living, then you want it to be as safe and as prosperous as possible.
Yeah, Ray, what's your take on NYRA going all synthetic in the winter?
Well, I first of all, I think I don't know if I'm too old to play pickleball or too young to play pickleball. but I hear you. I'm 70 now, and right. It's not as easy to jump up in the morning and be active. It takes a little longer to warm up. I think, first of all, I think horsemen in New York are running for more money than they do when they ship to Florida in the wintertime. And I think this gives a lot of them, maybe not the mega stables that have graded stakes horses they want to run down in Florida, or some of the trainers just go down to Florida to train, to really give their horses a break. Chad Brown does that with a lot of his best horses, and uses Payson Park for that. But I think it's a good thing for people who don't have the top quality horses. As you said, I think they tend to last longer. You hear about the soft tissue problems, but that I haven't heard as much about that as I did when they first came out with the synthetics. And
Right.
I mentioned the dirt tracks are getting safer. I think the synthetics are getting better too. I mean, Michael Dickinson, and what is he up to PETA 9.0 now, or 11.0, 15.0?
Yep.
So I think it's a good thing. A lot of horse players don't like it, but the numbers would say otherwise. I know that when Keeneland went to synthetics, I think it was Frank Angst at Blood Horse did kind of a comparison of handle before and after, and it was better. Handle was higher at Keeneland afterwards, and a lot of it had to do probably with races coming off the turf. It's a problem that you don't have as much as you do, say, at Saratoga. But I think, I mean, and why not have a synthetic surface at Saratoga? I mean, I hate to scare anybody with that, but instead of a 2 or 3 horse field, which we're going to have on a lot of days when it's off the turf,
Right.
How many of those horses would run if it was a synthetic? Probably a majority, I would think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ray, I just have one more overarching question for you, and that is, what when Rapoli was self-proclaimed himself as the commissioner, he said we're going to go after low-hanging fruit and we're going to try to address the retirement angle of the horses, because if you're not behind that, then what are you doing in the industry? And I can see the wisdom in that. Is there a low-hanging fruit item that you think that we as an industry can address and accomplish in the near term?
You mean with not just aftercare, but anything?
Anything. What do you feel like we as an industry should address, because it's something that we can the majority of us can get behind and move forward with?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of what the late W.T. Young used to call unsolvable problems.
Yeah.
The one that keeps coming up from the players' angle is the computer players, the computer bettors, and how they've dominated the pools, and it's taken a lot of frankly it's taken a lot of the fun out of playing the races. When you basically you don't know what kind of odds you're going to get on a bet until the race starts, and that's not the way it should be. So would fixed odds be the answer to that? Well, they've tried it in New Jersey and it wasn't all that successful, I don't think.
Right.
There's a lot of issues. The soundness issue, the breeding stallions to 250 mares a year issue. I'm not sure that any of them. I think there's a problem with integrity at the horse sales. There's just and these are all things that Rapoli has mentioned, by the way. I mean, the more he talks, the more I think maybe he's not as crazy as I thought in the beginning, because he has identified. It's fairly easy to identify problems,
right?
But he's willing to talk about them a little bit. I don't know that he can do anything about it, but there's.
Yep. So do we need a real commissioner?
Well, I mean, how do you can't start with a commissioner. You have to start with a structure. Mm-hmm. A commissioner of what?
Right.
I mean, Mike is the commissioner of the NTA. Well, what is the NTA? It's Mike.
Right.
So he's the commissioner of Mike. And,
right.
So you have to have a structure. They tried it with the NTRA. And we did have, I think Tim Smith and then DG or whoever was called a commissioner, but they didn't really have any authority. One of the things they tried to do was to form an industry-wide alliance with TVG to help support a lot of the programs. And I think it was Philadelphia Park then that first said, no, we're not going to do that. And that kind of blew up that idea. So now we have, 5, 6, 7, 8 different ADW companies. We have this thing that's happened now with Elite and the computer players. So you have to have the structure first. And I'm not really sure that we can ever get there unless this might not pass antitrust. But if you take, I don't know, the 5 leading racing organizations would be, Stronach, Churchill, NYRA, Keeneland, Del Mar. And if you wanted to try to cross the border, you could count Woodbine. And just have those people form a group. That might not pass the antitrust test, but to form their own league and create a schedule of races create their own business model with a commissioner.
Yeah, scheduling of racing, like that's definitely seems like a low hanging fruit that we could do way better on. Ray, this is the last question for me, and it's about Paulick Report, because you guys do a great job. You have a lot of great writers. You break a good amount of news. What was the genesis of that, and then kind of how has it developed into the leading industry publication that it is?
Well, there's a guy named David Blee who passed away a few years ago that came to me with the idea. He was a big fan of the Drudge Report.
Gotcha.
And he came and proposed the idea to me that we create a website similar to that. And so we did. It was Brad Cummings and myself. Brad has moved on to, he's still in the gaming industry. Actually, he's working in lotteries now, creating lottery games. But so we started out with just Brad and I, and that was 2008. We made a connection with a company, and it looked just like the Drudge Report. I mean, it was, I'm surprised we didn't get sued actually, but then we developed a site that was a little more robust and added, one person at a time. And we've kind of been with really good staff. Natalie Voss has won multiple Eclipse Awards. Her husband, Joe Neville, is excellent. Won an Eclipse Award, understands the bloodstock world. Chelsea Hackbarth is a really talented writer who, and those three all are hands-on horse people. So it really helps. I'm not. So it really helps to have people that understand a lot of the issues that we cover, both from, the HISA regulatory end of it. Plus we have a lot of articles on horse care and off-track thoroughbreds. We're big supporters of thoroughbred aftercare. So it's evolved. It's there's not too many breaks. It's this game. There's not. Everybody thinks, oh, you must be really busy during Keeneland because there's races in Lexington when I'm there, and it's like, no, Keeneland's actually slower than a lot of the times. It's It's the rest of the year that's busy, as you guys know.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Joe, I don't know if I ever mentioned this on the air. I don't know, or to you personally, but I was a journalism major in college, and I actually wrote a letter to Ray. I think you were at the Thoroughbred Times that year, and asked what would it be? What's the easiest path to break into the industry? And you hand wrote me a note, actually saying, basically, don't. And I wish I had kept it, but that was like 40 years ago, and I should have held on to it, knowing 4 decades later that we'd be talking on a podcast. But yeah, you were basically like, it's great, but I would look into other sports before you came into the horse industry, and I never forgot that.
Well, just a quick follow up to that. Whenever I interviewed somebody who wanted to get a job in journalism in horse racing, I would first say, look, are you aware that the horse industry is not growing and it's shrinking, right. It's going in the wrong direction? And are you aware that newspapers and publications are struggling, with revenue issues and all that?
Yeah.
And they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, well, are you crazy?
Right. That was basically that was the tenor of the note. Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
What are you doing? The reason I do that to people is because they really have to want to do this.
Right.
There's really no days off, and it's not a 9 to 5 job. I punch the clock on Friday at 5 o'clock, and then I don't pay attention to anything until Monday morning. It's not the way it works. And I just wanted to make sure people understood that, you really have to work hard in this game.
Work hard, keep your integrity, and I love being a quote unquote fellow enemy of the state with you. So thank you.
Yeah. Same here. Everybody here's Black by Bob Baffert, I think. So we've got that in common. Hey, Ray, thanks so much for the time, man. Keep up the great work, and enjoy the summer at Del Mar. You deserve it.
Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it, and you guys have done a really good job with the show, I think.
Thank you. Right back at you with all your endeavors. We're big fans.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. There's one reason, there's many reasons, but there's one top reason that they're #1 in the business. Nobody knows horse racing, taxes, and business. That Venn diagram it's all one circle, like Len Green and the Green Group. They do an unbelievable job in saving people taxes and making it more profitable, more manageable to own horses in this business. And that's something we should all be for. Hit Len and the Green Group up at greenco.com, or what's that number, Michael?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
Thank you for that. Our resident composer, Michael Agresta, always appreciate that. But yeah, Len has a special offer for listeners of Rail Talk. He's got a confidential, complimentary half-hour consultation in it for you if you hit him up, where he'll guarantee you that he'll find you value and savings. But you don't got to take it from me. Take it from this latest satisfied customer, Belmont winning and Travers winning trainer, Jenna Antonucci.
We swapped over recently, and it's been great, work with him and the team and to really just deep dive things and assess to make sure we're making the right moves. And it's great to be able to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. How would you like me to handle these things? So important to be comfortable. We're talking about managing things that are, life and real things. And sometimes we can get a little lost in the make-believe of horse land. So trying to make good long-term decisions and knowing that and having that confidence in the team you're dealing with is important.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some additional tax implications from winning the Belmont and the Travers, and I'm sure Len and the Green Group helped her navigate those waters, and they'll do the same for you no matter what level of the business that you're in. They will help you out. Greenco.com or 732, John?
634-5100. Green Group.
All right, before we wrap, we got a little racing potpourri segment just to throw a couple of stories at you. And, John, it starts with a successful trip north of the border for Bullet. I guess it wasn't a trip because she was there already. But Bullet, who was potentially Royal Ascot bound, ran the My Deer Stakes on Saturday at Woodbine. Blew him away. What'd you think?
Joe, it was a real sense of pride. And it was a sense of pride for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of people criticized us for not bringing her over to Europe to run Royal Ascot, and I get it, but that wasn't exciting for us. It wasn't something that's on our bucket list. I almost said bullet list, on our bucket list. But I can see the enjoyment and the pageantry of running at Royal Ascot. Anyway, that being said, yeah, she won really convincingly. It reaffirmed our thinking about her. Joe, we really feel like that she's, a nice filly. I mean, we're not going out on a limb by saying something like that, but our goal is to run her in the Catch a Glimpse on the 17th of August. And then, I may have a scheduling issue because her next race after that is hopefully the Natalma, the Grade 1 Win and You're In for Del Mar. But unfortunately, it's the same date as a very good friend of mine getting married. I don't know if that friend can change the date of their wedding yet, but it may be easier to change the date of the wedding than it is to change the date of the race.
Yeah, totally. Did you RSVP yet?
I did. And I said,
Okay.
I said I wanted the fish option. Yes.
Finally, John RSVP. Now I got him locked in, and you'll just have to stream the race, my friend.
Yep.
On your phone.
Yep. All right. As long as that's okay. As long as it's okay, I won't be rude. That at like 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm going to be kind of stealing away into the coat closet with my phone to go see.
No.
If you hear cheering from the coat closet, it's not because of anything other than we're watching the Natalma. Hopefully that'll happen. And then also Joe, just to follow up. A horse that I named Dream On, after one of my all-time favorite songs from my all-time favorite band, Aerosmith, came back and won. And now he's going to Canada to run in the Soaring Free on August 17th and hopefully the summer, also on September 14th. It's a good thing I love you. You know how much I love you when I'm passing up the possibility of going to see a couple of Grade 1 races, winning your ins, just to make sure that Megan actually says I do when you ask her to be your betrothed.
And just so you know, John, it's in Brooklyn. So bring your armored vehicle and your security detail. We'll keep you safe.
Yep. Well, the horse with a name like Bullet, I'm in pretty good shape. Anyway, I do want to mention that Julia, if you can post Bullet's pedigree page brought to you by Arian, you can see that Joe, not only is she a 2-time stake winner and undefeated, but her second dam was Surfside, who was a champion 3-year-old filly in 2000. And then the third dam is Flanders, who was champion in 94. So the filly's got some pedigree. I mean, she, you wouldn't just say a daughter of Warfront that has pedigree out of a Tappet mare, but there's champions, just peppered throughout Bullet's pedigree. So thank you to Ariane for giving us this pedigree. And it looks like it's getting stronger and stronger every race, Joe.
Yeah, man. No, she's gonna have lots of residual value if she keeps on rolling the way she is. Speaking of Woodbine, was some major news over the weekend. Emma Jane Wilson. It was actually on Thursday evening. Emma Jane Wilson surpassed Hall of Fame jockey Julie Crone for all-time purse earnings by a female jockey. She was entered the day just a little over $11,000 shy of Crone's record, which was over $90 million. Took her place in racing's history book with a win on Perfect Lady B. Was a first-time starter for Roger Attfield. Pretty fitting because she and Roger Attfield have had a great relationship over the years. And Chuck Fipke. She's ridden a lot of Chuck Fipke horses. So that was perfect. And she's only 42 years old, so she could keep riding for another 5-10 years probably and really, get to that 9-figure mark and really become hard to catch. And it's one of these things where it's obviously a major accomplishment, and I'm sure she's very proud, as she should be. But I hope that it just gives people the recognition that she's a good jockey, male or female. She's a very, very good jockey, and there's a reason that she's gotten to the point that she's gotten to. So congrats to Emma Jane and to everybody that's helped her and supported her along the way for what a great accomplishment that is. John, you have anything to add? You know her personally at all?
Yeah, I mean, Emma Jane rode a number of horses for us over the years at Woodbine, and the one thing that I'll say about Emma Jane is that she is extremely consistent. She rides hard every single race. She tries hard. Doesn't matter if it's 20-1 or a 9-5 shot. She's going to do whatever she can to try to put that horse in position to win. And just a class act. We've communicated a couple of times after some wins over the years, and she's always responded, always very positive about the industry, and just a great ambassador of the industry. And Joe, the other thing is, like, she's also a mentor for a lot of the female jockeys that are that are racing in Canada, whether it's Sophia Vives or a number of them. I know last year, I think it was 4 out of the top 10 riders at Woodbine were women. And that says something, and they have a great example and a great figure to follow with Emma Jane Wilson. So hat off to her for riding as consistently and at the top level that she is. And I think you're right. I think she's got a number of years to go before she hangs it up. And it's just been a pleasure to be able to have her ride horses for us, Joe. And she's a professional's professional.
Yeah, no doubt. Another jockey accomplishment, Perry Oates, who's ridden for a long time in the Midwest, in the Ohio area, and Kentucky. He became, I think, the oldest rider to win a race, 70 years old at Belterra Park recently. So that's another accomplishment, and he's third in the standings there. So it's not like he just won one race, like just as a novelty. So shout out to Perry and for that accomplishment too. So yeah, lots of positive jockey news over the weekend. Congratulations to those new standard bearers in their respective age groups or gender groups. Very, very cool to see.
And
John,
one more jockey announcement,
Yeah.
though, is that Patty Wolf has told us behind the scenes that she would like to date a jockey. So if you're single and you're interested in
Don't cut.
and you're interested, the beautiful and talented Patty Wolf is taking applications for but you have to be a licensed jockey. That's the thing. You have to be.
I did think that she was a little too into the jockey basketball game.
Yeah, a little bit.
As fun as that is, she's just a little too into it. She's like scouting like an NBA groupie on the court.
Very competitive, very exciting. Check out the Chaplaincy basketball game. It is awesome.
It's a great event.
It's a fundraiser, but it's really, really exciting.
It's a great event.
Really hot.
And, yep. Switching gears slightly
to a more serious.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually it's in the same vein because it has to do with the racetrack chaplaincy. Len Green, our esteemed sponsor, friend, mentor that we've had over the years here at Rail Talk. John's a little shrug there.
Father figure. I was going to say father
figure. Father figure. Yeah, I guess is being honored at the racetrack chaplaincy. It's a great event. It raises money for a terrific cause, and I can't think of a better honoree than Len. Pat, oh, there we go. Patty's got the brochure or the
animation
pamphlet up.
You don't have to mention me. Just you could. It's just for you to read it.
Why are there little hearts around the jockey, Patty?
That's a really great.
that-
Wow, that's a who did that drawing? That's terrific. So 7.
I don't know. We'll find out. Some from the chaplaincy, but I just wanted to give you the date.
Wait,
and
don't move
also,
it. 17th annual racetrack chaplaincy brunch at the Saratoga National Golf Club, Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. Okay.
All right, and if you want to get tickets, they're still available. You can still get in there. They will sell out, but there's a month. They're a month away now, and the website is. I'm trying to know by heart. It's www.rtcany.org.
And Patty,
tell Patty's old because she still says the www.
Guys, this is not to put me on camera. This is just to.
Is there
Make
another
sure
way
you're
to
on
get
the
tickets?
World Wide Web. rtcany.org. No, it's in all seriousness, it's a terrific event. Obviously, an awesome honoree, and it looks like we've got a little bit of a contest coming up in relation to it. John, why don't you tell the people more?
Well, people have been clamoring to get tickets and wanting to not only honor Len at this event and show their support for the chaplaincy. But Joe, believe it or not, we actually have some fans. We actually have some people that watch the show, and people have been asking for more so, I think, to spend time with you than with me, which I understand. But we thought that because we have a couple extra tickets and a couple extra seats at our table for the event, at yours and mine table at the event, that we would give away 3 seats to fans who want to, support the cause and spend some time and talk horses with us, or talk podcasts or whatever, whatever they want. Ask where you're registered, Joe, for your upcoming nuptials. Whatever it is, we are going to be free game and have the opportunity to spend time with 3 lucky listeners. And Patty, how do they get in the queue to be able to win these tickets?
Well, I thought that they could comment on our Twitter posts for this episode. And I don't know if you guys go for this, but I thought maybe they could say, hey, here's what I would talk about if I had your ear at this lunch. And then you and Joe can pick the people based on what they want to talk about.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That sounds great. So it'll be totally biased. Joe and I will actually be picking, with whom we want to spend time with, but more importantly, what topics we want to talk about. So please bring your topics to the website or what, Joe? Your
Twitter.
www.twitter.com.
Twitter or X. And by the way, let me just say from an insider, they really only like to talk about themselves.
That's true.
That's if you listen to the show, you're not surprised.
That's a cheat code. You can't say Joe and John. Everybody who's everybody is there at the Racetrack Chaplaincy Brunch, August 14th at the Saratoga National Golf Club. So we can't wait for it. And comment, let us know what you want to chat with me and John about, because everything, as always, is about John and I. And we'll pick our lucky few and welcome you up to the Saratoga National Golf Club, and we'll have a great time honoring a terrific dude.
And the event will be over in advance of post time, race 1. So you won't be missing anything over at the front side as well. Yep. They have it timed down to a T.
Yeah. You'll be able to hop over and see 12 wire-to-wire winners in a row at Saratoga that day. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But we'd love to have you. We'd love to see you. So let us know, and we'll pick a few lucky people, and we'll have a ball. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. It's such an exciting time for Fasig-Tipton. We mentioned earlier about the Horses of Racing Age $1.55 million topper and Informed Patriot. So that's like I said, it sets a new standard for the Horses of Racing Age sales. I think the digital sales continue to set records every single time that Fasig does them. They're pretty much doing them every single month now. And then, of course, the big physical sales coming up in Saratoga. The Saratoga sale, August 5th and 6th, to be followed by the New York bred sale, August 11th and 12th. I'm not telling any tales out of school here. West Point will be shopping those sales. We'll be there. We'll be there heavy, and picking up some nice horses. I'm sure. Obviously, the especially in the select sale, the pedigrees in that catalog, it's just one after another. blue hen mares who have produced tons of great horses, top class stallions. So can't wait to get there and get on the grounds and see all of those yearlings. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the digital sales just continue to grow in importance and quality of horses. And Jon can attest to that, as you've got a couple of really nice ones, household names, in fact, coming up for the next digital sale.
Household names, Joe. And you know, one thing that Fasig-Tipton in particular has shown us about these digital sales is that if you put quality up there, people have an appetite for it, and they will, you know, they will whet their appetite. They'll be interested. They'll put their money where their mouth is, and they're bidding on these horses. So much so that we put, we call it the DJ dozen, just because it's cute. But we have amongst those 12 horses that are in the upcoming digital sale, none other than Holy Bull winning Kentucky Derby Trail, competitor Hades. Fresh off finishing second in the Dwyer in New York a couple of weeks ago. Hades will be headlining the horses that we have in that sale. Again, great at stake winning 3-year-old. And we were just talking about all these 3-year-old races that are coming up, whether it's the West Virginia Derby or the St. Louis Derby or the Oklahoma Derby. There's a whole host of Pennsylvania Derby. There's a plethora, as you like to say, Joe, of 3-year-old stake races that are still coming up that this horse would be eligible for. But yeah, we decided to put a couple of headlining horses in there, like Hades, Mrs. Green, Minty, who just ran over the weekend, Doctor's Orders, Catch a Tiger, who just won. So I would say definitely take a look at that group. They're not going to be inexpensive, but they're turnkey and they're ready to go. And one thing that we've all learned out of these digital sales, especially, is that you buy a horse on a Tuesday and you can have them in entries in your silks that weekend. And there's no difference with this upcoming sale. So we're big believers in it. We're supporters. We've bought and sold at these digital sales, and Fasig-Tipton is the vehicle of choice for us. They've just done an outstanding job. Anna Seitz, Boyd Browning, Leaf, who's in charge of all the digital sales. They are part of our team, and they just continue to tee up our good horses and let the marketplace take over after that, Joe.
Absolutely. And then just to follow up quickly on the Saratoga sales, both catalogs are now online. 240 yearlings catalog for the select sale, 300 New York breds catalog for the New York bred sale. So go check those out at Fasig-Tipton.com. Going to be an action-packed summer over at the Fasig Saratoga Pavilion. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 52 of Rail Talk. Jon, it was good to have you back. See you this weekend for our little Haskell slumber party. Can't wait for that. Thank you to Ray Paulick for stopping by and having a great chat with us. Thank you to our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producers, Julia Agresta, Nathan Wilkinson, and Brad Gerke. And mega shout out to our Rail Talk composer, Michael Agresta, Julia's brother, who just had a baby. Now, they haven't decided on a name yet. They're thinking John, Jack. We're not going to open it up to a naming contest yet, just like we do for all of our horses. But in all seriousness, congratulations to Michael and the entire Agresta family. That's super, super exciting. Thank you to our sponsors, Fasig-Tipton, Green Group, and the TaylorMade. And thank you, as always, to you, the viewers and the listeners, for checking us out. See you back here next week on Rail Talk.